Okay, good evening. We're in the sugya of Stam. We're in the sugya of Stam. Yesterday we saw some geschmacka raid about Moshe Rabbeinu and going up, Rabbi Akiva, very famous Agada. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. I really enjoyed that Brisker. Anyway, so we stopped off a little bit before the two dots because we're going to get two members of Rav vis-a-vis the halachas of Stam. So we're up one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 lines up from the bottom of Chav Tes Amid Beis. The last words are on the line. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Hani Tarti Mili Amar Rav Bisvarim. These two things Rav said regarding Safras, halachas and Safras, Vitanya Tiyufta. And there's a brisa that was Tiyufta to Rav. So he said two halachas regarding Safras, and we have two statements from Tanoim and Brises that are upshlag Rav. What's the first one? Chada, Hada Marav. Sefer Torah sheyesh bo shtei tois b'chol daf v'daf. On every column, you have the column is the daf is the page. In other words, the urios is the piece of parchment, and the daf is the column. You know that's where you mean. So the column, if you have two, you're talking. Shalosh, if you have three, then you gones. Then you have to go ahead and put that in Geniza. You can't be metaking it. That's what Rav says. So two, yes. Three, you can't be metaking. Vitanya tiyufta, and we have a brisa that's a tiyufta. Shalosh yitakein, arba yugones. Three are still good. Four, Geniza. So Rav is saisa from a brisa. The brisa says three is good. Rav said three is no good. In Tana, okay, that's the tiyufta. Now, Tana, daf achas shalema. If in the Torah you have a daf that's shalem, the l'chayr that's perfect, matzelis al kulam, it'll save the other dafim. So you have, let's say, a urea and you have dafim, and you have three mistakes. Well, according to the brisa, four mistakes. If you have one that's totally good, it'll be matzel the other ones, and you'll be able to correct them. Amrab Yitzchak Shmuel bar Marta Mishmei derav, who dichsiv ruba b'safra, and that's if provided that the Rashi on the Rif says that you don't have 5 or 6 ruba b'safra shapir. You have at least you don't have more of 5 or 6. So in other words, it doesn't have to be for who dichsiv ruba b'safra. That right the sefer is good. This daf that you want to save, the other dafim, does it have to be perfect or can it also have 3 mistakes? In other words, let's say you have dafim with 5 and 6 mistakes, they're no good. Now you have one that's shalem, it's matzel the other ones. What happens if this one's a shalem? Doesn't mean it's totally perfect, it means it's correctable because it only has 3. What's the din? Does it have to be perfect or correctable will be matzel the others? Since it's given to be corrected, since it only has 3, it is what? It's correctable, and therefore what? It would save the others. Bahani Mili, when we speak of mistakes, that's cheseres. When is 4 a problem according to the Brisa and 3 a problem according to Rav? That's when you're missing letters or missing words. Ava Yeseres, but if you have extra, then less lamba. If you have extra, then even more than 3, even more than 3 or 4 would be good. In other words, the mistake is missing. That's what I was speaking about the tois, that according to the Brisa, 4 is no good. But if it's Yiseiros, that's extra words, extra letters, then it would be okay. Cheseris my time aloi. It appears like a leopard. So what does it mean if it's missing? It appears like a leopard. It's that if it's missing, then the Isis, you're going to have to write Isis between the lines, in order to make up, and it's going to be spotted like a leopard. Or another shot I saw is that the ink will be dark from all the changes. The ink will be dark, and therefore what? It'll look like a leopard. So therefore, the problem is the cheseiroi, it's not the yiseiros. Igre chamur the Reb Abba Hava. Bottom line doc, bottom one on Chav Tes. Igre chamur the Reb Abba Havila yiseiros bis seferia. He had in his Sefer Torah he had extra. Us came the Reb Abba. He came from the Rabbi. Wanted what the halacha was. Amalei le'amarn el b'cheseris. That didn't be said about mistakes that that according to four is uncorrectable, that's only by chaserus. Al yiseros less number. But by yiseros, then is not a problem. You'll be able to go ahead what and correct them. Omar al yiseros less number. Idach, what's the other tiyufta the Rav? Guys, the first tiyufta was Rav said two you could correct, three not. The Baisa said three you could correct, four not. So we had a question or tiyufta on Rav from three. Idach, what's the other tiyufta on Rav? The Amar Rav, Hakois Sefer Torah. Someone writes a Sefer Torah. Uba Ligmar, and he wants to complete the Sefer Torah. Right? Goimer Afilu Avrami, second line from the top, Lamed Amid Aleph. Goimer Vafilu Be'emsa Hadaf. You can go ahead and complete it even if it's the middle of the column. So if you're finishing writing a Sefer Torah and you want to complete it, even if you're going to leave over a bunch of empty parchment, right? You finish it in the middle of the column. Meisivei hakoisa Sefer Torah boloi ligmar la yigmar be'emtza hadaf kederach shegoyme b'chumashim. You shouldn't go ahead and finish it in the middle of the daf like they would finish chumashim. Chumashim guys, they didn't have a printing press. So all they're learning were from scrolls. So they had chumashim. They had that. It wasn't a Sefer Torah, but they had chumashim. They had chumash breishis. Most they was in scrolls. So those you can finish in the middle of a daf, but a Sefer Torah you can't. And this is the upshlag on Rav. Rav said you could. This is the tiyufta to Rav that you can't. Ella, what do you do? Ella mikatz v'hoylech at Sefer daf. You go ahead and you start writing shorter and shorter at the end of the daf. If you look at Rashi, you see a picture. So like a pyramid going down, an inverse pyramid, right? Going down, you would write and continue to go ahead and diminish the space until what? You'd finish the end of the daf. You'd finish the end of the column. That's Sefer daf. Now, so it's a kasha on Rav. Rav said the emsa hadaf you could finish, and here we have a brayso on that. Says the Gemara ki kama Rav b'chumashim, right? When did Rav say that in the middle? That's by chumashim. But by Sefer Torah is maida that you can't finish what in the middle. Sefer Torah, come on. Look at the words. Dama Rav, second line from the top. Hakoisiv Sefer Torah Baligmar. So how can you tell me chumashim? How can you tell me chumashim you can finish in the middle with Rav and you tell me it's speaking about the scrolls that they would use, but the Sefer Torah Rav is maida. Rav says openly the Sefer Torah you can finish in the middle of the daf. And for the Gemara. Then the Chumashim shall Sefer Torah. He was speaking about the Chumash in the Sefer Torah. He was speaking about you got to Bereshis and now you got to Shmos. So you can finish the space in between. You can go ahead and finish Bereshis in the middle of the daf. Shmos to Vayikra are the same. But by Devarim, you'd have to finish at the end of the page. So when he said the Emsa Daf, he was referring to what? The separate Chumashim in the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, in the Sefer Torah itself. Ini is it really so? V'amrav Yeshua bar Abba, Amrav Gidl, Amarav, Le'enei Kol Yisrael be'emtza adaf. It says Be'enei Kol Yisrael, which are the last words of the Torah proper, what can even be in the middle of the daf. Says the Gemara, Hi be'emtza shita itmar. Doesn't mean don't learn in the middle of the daf. Learn in the middle of the line. It's got to be at the end of the page, but you can finish it in the middle of the line of the page. So that picture of Chumash, that picture of Sefer Torah, you have the last cloth, right? And then the last line. It doesn't have to complete it to the end of the line. It can be in the middle of the line, but it has to be at the end of the page. Nasan Ram Lamed Amid Aleph, about 10 lines down. Hahi be'emsa shita itmar. Rabbanan Amri af be'emsa shita, right? It even be'emsa shita, and kavachayma be'emsa hadaf, right? That you can finish in the middle of. It seems to be that the emsa hadaf is nicer than emsa shita. So according to the Rabbanon, right, you would be finished. You would be able to finish. You wouldn't have to end the end of the column. You can go in the middle of the column because if you can finish in the line, you can finish at the end of the column. Rav Ashi says no. Be'emsa shita dafka, the Rav say, but the Sefer Torah has to be finished at the end of the line. The Hilchas of be'emsa shita dafka, that dafka they said be'emsa shita, but be'emsa daf, the Sefer Torah has to be completed at the emsa hadaf. The Hilchas of be'emsa shita, the halacha is that what Rav said is din be'emsa shita, that you could the Sefer Torah finish. You could finish the Emsa Shita. Just 1 second. Just 1 second here. Yeah, so the Emsa Shita means you can finish Emsa Shita, but but you could finish the Emsa at the end of the daf, but it has to be what? At the end of the daf. Okay, so we have Yeshua bar Abba in the name of Rav Gidl, in the name of Rav. We're in the middle of Safris. Lenny, we're parallel to the Tosfos on Lamed Amid Aleph, the Tosfos Mikan Ve'elech. We're parallel to that in the Gemara. So, Amr Rav Yeshua bar Abba, Amr Rav Gidl, Amr Rav, Shmoyne Psukim Shebet Torah. So this is a very famous Gemara. The last 8 Psukim of the Torah, Yochid Koiroi son the Beis HaKnesses. The Yochid, in other words, you can't go ahead and be mafsik the aliyah in the last 8. It has to be going. The last 8 have to be the same person. Kiman, the like Reb Shimon. It's not like Reb Shimon, the Tanya. By Yom Hashem Moshe Eved Hashem. 8 psukim before the Torah ends, it says Moshe was nifta. Moshe died. Ev Shem Moshe Chai v'kosev by Yom Hashem Moshe. Is it possible Moshe is dead and he's writing by Yom Hashem Moshe? Ela ad kan kosev Moshe, until the last 8 psukim Moshe wrote. Mikan ve'elech kosev Yeshua bin Nun. And from the last 8 psukim were written by Yeshua, Divrei Reb Yehuda, V'yemri lo Reb Nechemya. So Memela, since this was not written by Moshe, it was written by Yeshua, it's a different darga, and therefore do not be mafsik the aliyah. The last 8 has to stay. However, let's say it's not like Rav Shimon, because Amalei Rav Shimon said, Efshe Sefer Torah chasa ois achas. A Sefer Torah is missing 1 ois. Guys, we said, forget 1 ois. Even Kaitza Shel Yud, even the little strickle on a Yud, right? With Pasel. The Kosev, like Moshe was told by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, L'koach HaSefer HaTorah Hazeh, V'samta oisoi, and you should place it, B'tzad Oren, B'is Hashem. So who's writing this? Moshe. Moshe is going to put a Torah that's chasa. So it's not shaykh that Moshe didn't finish the Torah. He had to write the last 8 psukim. So vehemently, Rabbi Yeshua disagrees with Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Nechemya. Rabbi Shimon disagrees with Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Nechemya. There's no way in the world with Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemya. There's no way in the world Moshe didn't finish writing the Torah. If Hashem told him to write the Torah and put it away, you could be assured that what? That Moshe wrote it. Ela ad kan HaKadosh Baruch Hu oimer u'Moshe kaisev v'oimer. Until now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Moshe wrote and said, he repeated it. We'll see another pshat in a second. Mikan ve'elach HaKadosh Baruch Hu oimer u'Moshe kaisev b'dema. Hashem said and Moshe wrote, but he didn't say. So dema literally means, guys, it means tears. So here's what happened. Hashem went ahead, told Moshe what to write. Moshe wrote it and repeated it. When he got to Vayom Hashem Moshe, so he's writing about his own death. So he was in such tsar, says Rashi, he was crying, but he wrote it. But he wrote it in tears. And he didn't say, he didn't say anything. Why didn't he say anything? Is because he was in tsar, right? Emotionally, he couldn't say anything. That's one pshat in the Gemara. That's pasha pshat. Now, there's a beis over here, and it changes around in the, if you look at the pasuk, guys, we can read it like this. Ad kan HaKadosh Baruch Hu oimer, u'Moshe oimer v'koisev. You switch around the oimer v'koisev. Mikan ve'elach HaKadosh Baruch Hu oimer, u'Moshe koisev, without saying anything. What would the nafkamina, guys, be between koisev v'oimer versus oimer v'koisev? Right? What would nafkamina be? Guys, what's the difference in Moshe saying before he wrote versus writing before he said, correct? So take a look at the beis in the Shita. HaKadosh Baruch Hu oimer, u'Moshe oimer v'koisev. So the Shita puts the oimer before the koisev. Our Gemara has the oimer after the koisev, right? Our Gemara has the amira after the kesiva. The Shita has the opposite. He has the amira first and then the kesiva. Mikan shetarach likres la'adam keshu koisev sefer Torah tefillin oy mezuzah. When a person's writing stam, he has to read. He has to read it beforehand. That's not nafkamina, guys. If Moshe wrote and then said, just write. But if he said and then wrote, this would be halacha that a person would have to go ahead and say before he wrote. Okay. Now, where do you see that because of pain, a person would stop saying?
To the Shita, what happened with the last 8 psukim?
Right? So Moshe wrote him.
Say, well, he didn't say it beforehand.
He wrote it b'dema. Right.
So,
According to the
so
according to the
Shita,
Shita, right?
the
According
last
to the
8 psukim,
Shita, the last 8 he did not say.
correct.
Right. Yeah, that the last 8 he did not say. Now, okay. Now it says over here, Vayomer lehem Baruch, and Yirmiyahu is telling Baruch ben Nuriah to write down Eicha. He told him over here to write down Eicha. So Vayomer lehem Baruch mi pivi koralai es kol advarim eile v'ani kaisev al sefer b'dayoi. But he didn't go ahead. He wrote it. He didn't say afterwards anything because it was Eicha. So you see pain, guys. Just like Yirmiyahu, right, didn't say anything because of the pain. Baruch didn't say anything because of the pain. So to Moshe Rabbeinu because of the pain. I mentioned this a few times. The word dema usually means tears. There was rope of tears. The Gura and Sefer Teres Eliyahu says Gavaldig Pshat, guys. He says dem is a lashon dimua. Dimua means mixed. When you have chulin and trum mixed together, it's called dimua. That Moshe wrote the letters, but what they spelled out, what the letters would spell out, that was up to the event. So Moshe wrote all the letters of the Torah, but the last 8 psukim was spelled out by what happened. So Moshe wrote B'dema like jumble. He wrote it, and what happened? And then the events occurred, and they I guess miraculously they spelled that out, or Yeshua filled it in, or Yeshua put it together, whatever. So the Chayra, it's not like we have a kasha, guys. Bishlem, if Yeshua wrote it, I can understand why you can't be mapsik. But if Moshe wrote it, why can't you be mapsik? Like Reb Shimon. So he wanted to say, Reb Shimon, since Reb Shimon wrote it, you can't be mapsik. So the Chayra, you should be able to be mapsik. I feel the tame Reb Shimon, Hoyel Vishtani Ishtani. Even so, like Reb Shimon, you won't be able to be mafsik. Because this was different. Even though Moshe wrote it, he wrote it differently than the rest of the Torah. The rest of the Torah, he wrote what? He wrote when he wasn't crying. This he wrote when he was crying. So Mamela, it was different. Certainly La the Groy, it was different, right? And so therefore, it was different. Mamela, you can't be mafsik savisai, even according to Rabbi Shimon. From Rabbi Shua bar Abba, Amarav Gidl, Amarav, Halakeach Sefer Torah min Hashuk. If someone buys a Sefer Torah min hashuk, ki chaytif mitzvah min hashuk. It's like he chapped the mitzvah min hashuk. Says Rashi, ki chaytif mitzvah, mitzvah of it, he did a mitzvah. Avli kosav, if he would have written it, having mitzvah yisera tfei, it would have been better. So to buy a Sefer Torah, according to Rashi, is like chapping a mitzvah. But it's not the best thing. It's not the best thing. Continues the Gemara, Kisvu. If you write a Sefer Torah, Ma'alav Akosav Kilo Kibel Mer Sinai. If you write a Sefer Torah, right, it's like you makabel it from Har Sinai. Amrav Shisha Imegia Afilo Isachas. If you go ahead and correct one letter, Ma'alav Akosav Kilo Kosvu, the Torah is considered as if you wrote it. So therefore, many of us we exceed a Sefer Torah. You go, you write an ois. It's like you wrote a Sefer Torah, right? Like you wrote a Sefer Torah. Now. Bisman hazeh, believe it or not, guys, there's a machlokes whether light the rush, whether there's a mitzvah to write a Sefer Torah or not. So I figured this evening there's a well-known rush, and I'll share it with you, but I'll share it to you from his son, the Torah. This is not what I want. I don't know. Okay. Do you see every day Hilchas Sefer Torah, Ayin Reish? So we don't want to say Ra, we say Ayin Reish. Okay. Because of this lashon of the Torah, because of Adoni Yovi Harosh Sal, Shezel loy nemar, to write a Sefer Torah loy nemar el Daras Harishonim, only the earlier generations. The Daras Harishonim, the earlier generations. Shahayu Kaisvin Sefer Torah v'loimdim ba. They would write a Sefer Torah and they would learn from it. Aval idna, in this day and age, shekaisun Sefer Torah umanicham oislay beis hakneses. We write a Sefer Torah and we leave it in shul. Likris behem barabim, that the rabbis should read from it. Mitzvahs asay al kol Yisrael asher yodai maseges. Anyone who can afford it. Lichtov chumshei Torah u'mishnah u'gemara u'pirushayim lahagis behem u'ubanav. To teach him lihonos behen u'ubanav. Guys, remember, this is before the printing press. Before the printing press, says the Rosh, since the purpose of the Sefer Torah, they used to learn from the Sefer Torah, and Bisman Hazeh, we don't learn from the Sefer Torah. So even in the time of the early Middle Ages, right? Says the Rosh, you would go ahead, it's a mitzvah, to write Svarim and learn from them. And that's the mitzvah. Mitzvahs ksiva toife hi kedei lilmod ba, dechsiv v'lomdes b'nei Yisrael, right? Simba b'fiyem. Vayidei hagamaru pirusha yoda pirish hamitzvos vadinim al buryam. You know correctly what to do. L'chein hein asvarim shodam mitzvah l'kaisvam. These are the svarim that a person is mitzvah to write. V'gam shloi l'moichram. And if you have them, don't sell them. And l'ilum Torah l'isisha. It has the lacha sefer Torah. If not to learn Torah, to go learn Torah, marry a woman. Says the Beis Yosef. Says the Torah, quoting his father, that Bisman Hazeh, in the time of the Rosh, the mitzvah is to buy Svarim, write Svarim, because again, the mitzvah is to learn, and they learn from a Torah. Now, here's the question. According to the Rosh, Bisman Hazeh, is there a mitzvah to write a Sefer Torah or not? In other words, does the fact that you're learning from Svarim, again, that you had written, that you paid for, and that's the mitzvah, does it usurp the mitzvah of writing Sefer Torah? Okay, so that is a machlokes between the Beis Yosef and the Shach. Okay, the custom of them, right? Lo limud Torah, right? V'yesh l'tmua, guys, you see it? V'yesh l'tmua. Heich bo harosh lifta la'adam mi mitzvahs ksiva sefer Torah. How could the? Let's see if I can make it a little bigger. V'yesh l'tmua. Heich bo harosh. How could the rush come? How could the rush come to get a person off the hook? Right? How can a rush come to get a person off the hook? I think this might be worse. Me fooling around with it. So basically, guys, he says, the Beis Yosef says, the letters are very small, I'm not going to pain you. The Beis Yosef says that this Bisman Hazeh is still a mitzvah to write a Sefer Torah. Even though, like the Rush, who says that the mitzvah is write Svarim, he still holds the mitzvah to write a Sefer Torah. Can you see something else there on the screen now? You see the same thing? You see something else? No, okay. See something else on the screen? Okay. Now this is the lashon of the shach. Kasav pishanira dachi kamarash. Shamitzvah say nemar dafka be'elu v'lei b'sifrei Torah. The Prisha says that not like the Beis Yosef. The mitzvah is only that and not a Sefer Torah. The dafka be yemeyim shayaloindim Torah shebal peh shlayim min aksav ki im al peh hayitzrichim lilmud misefer Torah. Right? Hamatuyagas halacha that was corrected, edited correctly. Umudiyakos b'chaseres v'yaseres, because they only had Torah Shabbat Peh. Upiskei Taimim and to know the trup. Avol bismanenu zeh shenasalon eheta lichtev svarim dafim kol echad b'fnei atzmai. Im kain lama lana l'zalza b'kavod sefer Torah b'chinam lilma mitoichai shaloi l'tzayrich. How can Mizalza learn a Torah right? Nimse b'doris halalu. she'ein loin de mitoicha leka ben mitzvah say adkan. Says the shach v'chein nera ika ki harosh u'deloi ki beis Yosef habach. So you have machlokes gedoli achroinim between the beis Yosef and the shach whether bisman hazeh guys there's a mitzvah right to Sefer Torah. Isn't that fascinating? Fascinating. The Rosh is Yedua.
Is the point because we don't learn from the Sefer Torah itself?
Correct.
That's the vart, right?
Yeah. Okay. So really, the shaila is: do you need a Sefer Torah to learn from it, or is it a mitzvah to have a Sefer Torah? So, in other words, is it a mitzvah to write a Sefer Torah or to have a Sefer Torah? Pashtus, according to Rashi, is a mitzvah to have a Sefer Torah because it says if you buy one from a guy in the street, you get a mitzvah. It's not the same mitzvah as writing one, but what? It's now this is problematic because we saw a Gemara Chaf Aleph in Sanhedrin that says if a person dies and leaves a Sefer Torah, the kid still has a mitzvah to write one. But 1 second, he has a Sefer Torah. What's the difference between having and buying it, right? What's the difference between having and buying it, right? So I heard Sully Bornstein quoted Yaakov Bienenfeld, the Bean of Camp, what was it called? Beit Kaita fame, right? He quoted a Maram Shik. Listen to this geschmack. Guys, why does it say he bought a Sefer Torah min hashuk? Min hashuk means from the marketplace. Why didn't you say he bought a Sefer Torah? So the difference if he buys a Sefer Torah from an individual or he buys a Sefer Torah from the shuk. Who's he buying from in the shuk, guys? The Sefer. The Sefer. Says the Mashik Gavaldig. He goes, when the Sefer writes, is he writing for himself or is he writing to sell? He's writing to sell. When you buy it, Yesh Breira, that Huvra Double and Afreya, that he wrote it for you. So you Mekayim the mitzvah. Mashain Kain, where you inherited it, you did nothing. So really it's a mitzvah to write it. However, when it says over here that you bought it, it's like Tamarim Shik, it's like you wrote it. Because we're going to say Breira. Because again, he's selling it. I want to tell you guys, that's Pshat. What's Lashon Chapt? That's Lashon Chapt. The Chotfu, right? Shmak, guys. I bought it before you did, so I chapped ice. Had you bought it, you would have been Yotzei Mitzvah. It would have been Breira Huvra that the Sofer wrote it for you. By me buying it, I chapped the Rhein. I got there ahead of you. Right? Had you bought it, you would have got the mitzvah. But you know what I did? I chapped you a rice. I think it's very nice. I think it's very nice. So that would be, so again, Shitas, just be aware, these Shitas are Rosh. Again, this is before Bisman Hazeh, you buy Svarim, according to the Rosh, you be Yotzei Mitzvah of Sefer Torah. So trust me, it's a lot cheaper.
But is this is it written in the Rambam, one of the mitzvahs for the 613 to write a Sefer Torah?
Yes.
So
yes. He doesn't pass. Again, he argues with the Rosh.
I get it, but now we're down to 612.
He argues with the Rosh. He argues. No, it's not 613. No, you're Yotzei your Sefer Torah by buying Svarim. In other words, you're not eradicating the mitzvah. We're changing the mitzvah, Baruch. You're going to be Yotzei the mitzvah like the Rosh by the Svarim that you had written or the Svarim that you bought. That would be the mitzvah. Because the whole purpose of Ksiva Sefer Torah is to learn from it. You're not learning from it. If anything, it's a bizayon to learn from it. You're not allowed to learn from a Sefer Torah, fellas. You're not allowed to learn from a Sefer Torah. You hear the answer I give you? You hear the answer I'm giving you. Okay? You're good. Geshmak. It's very, very geshmak. It's very nice. Like smack in the middle of Menachos, you have this. You say the stick of Gemara of Stam. It's unbelievable, and you have plenty of it. Okay. Back to the halachas of Safras. These are all the halachas of Safras. Amrav Sheshes. Okay, we did that. Simin is Seglam. Tanrabanim. Oisa Adam Yiriya. Now, you're making the klaf. The Sefer Torah is made up of klafim. The Yiriya is the klaf. It's, where it's sewn, right? On that klaf, you have different dafim. So we're speaking about now the klaf. How many dafim can fit on a klaf? You don't want to make it too small because you don't want to have too many tfiris, too many sewings. You don't want to make it too big. right? You don't want to make it too big. So how many? Adam Yuriya bas shalish dafim. If you had bas shmeina, you should be able to fit between 3 and between 8 dafim. Pachas mikan v'yeser al kain lo yaseh. You should make it more than that or less than that. So minimal of 3 and max of 8. That it should fit 8. For yarbe bedafim, you should not go ahead and let's say again you could fit 3 on here, but let's say you could fit 8. Let's say I want to fit more. In other words, let's say I want to fetch it in. Don't do it. If you're going to go ahead and write a lot of dafim on this urea, it's going to appear like a letter. You don't want to have so many spaces. Nor should you write too little, because your eyes literally begin to swim. Rashi says if it's too long, by the time you get to the other line, you're gonna miss it, right? It's too long. So therefore, you're gonna get a urea and you're gonna write, you know what? I'm gonna make it mahudar. It could fit 8. I'm gonna write 2. I have a urea that can fit 8. I'm gonna put 2 columns. Don't do it. So in other words, don't write too little because it's an igeris. Don't write too many because too many it's an igeris, or too little because your eyes will go ahead and swim. Elikagoyin lemishbechoi seichem. Elikagoyin the 3 times. Gimel Pamim say the word mishbechoi seichem. Now, if you count the letters, there's 10 letters there. So 10. So if it's 3 times 10 is 30. But it's interesting, fellas. It doesn't say 30 letters. It says the word. Why does it say lemishbechoi seichem? Because guys, not all letters are created equal. Not all letters are created equal. It's such kindness. If you just say that number, so therefore 30, it's not true, right? The Rabbi Menachos says it's a tefach. It's basically a tefach. It gives you a share. There's damin lo yuriya bas tisha dafim. Let's say you have a yuriya, you have a klaf, and in that klaf you can fit 9. You can fit 9. Lo yachlik sholish lekan v'sheish lekan. Don't make it 3 and 6, right? Because it's not so uniform. These are all din of hider, fellas. Zekeli van veyu. Hisna b'fun of a mitzvahs, right? And if hisna b'mitzvah of sefer Torah, ain't no gedolim mizu to make it as beautiful as possible. The medavam amurim that you shouldn't make too little or too many dafim betchilas hasefer. That's when you begin writing the sefer Torah. Ava b'sefer sefer at the end of the sefer afilu pasach echad v'afilu b'daf echad. It's mashma you can write 1 pasuk on 1 daf on 1 column. Fred Gemara pasuk echad saket aitach. How could you write 1 letter on 1 column? You just told me at the beginning you have to finish at the end of the daf, guys. We said you have to finish at the end of the daf, right? So it's mashma. At the end of the sefer, just write. Oh, you know what? You have one daf. Just write 1 pasuk. You can't just write 1 pasuk. It has to be at the bottom of the page. So Ella ema pasuk eka b'daf echad. If you have 1 pasuk and you have 1 daf, begin to write like going down 1, 2, 3. It should go. But again, that's amazing to me how exactly. You're going to write a pasuk. You have 1 column. You write Vayomer Hashem Al Moshe. But it's going to end up at the end of the page. It's amazing to me the cipher guys. It's amazing. Think about it. How they fit it all in. It's god amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. You take a look at a Sefer Torah, you get up there, you make a bracha on a Sefer Torah, you look at it, you learn a few halachas. It's amazing what they do. It's amazing.
Is every Sefer Torah exactly the same, where the words start on each line and then word for word?
I never compared it. They must be close. They must be close because again, you're fitting. I guess depending on the urea, Savrami, how many dafim you have on a urea, so it would depend upon that. I know, it's not like a Megillah, right? It begins Hamelach, 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 right? That you want to get a hitter in a Megillah, but it's amazing that what they fit in. Sometimes you see when they fetch via mol, you'll see that there was a mistake or something. You'll see, but by and large, it's pretty amazing. It's interesting. My Sefer Torah that I had written. By the time you get to the end, it's awful. You saw the guys. Baruch Hashem. I only get to see it once a year. And really at the end, you see all the guys who wrote it, right? It looks like gepatchkit and everything. It's that very interesting halacha. When they got to Sefer Torah, all the letters were outlined, and you filled it in. You didn't write the letter; you filled it in, right? There's a shita that the Sefer Torah, for all intents and purposes, it was finished already. So therefore, you're not really writing a Sefer Torah. There's such a shita. Anyway, so I was thinking about it when I was writing, and I knew that shita, and I was the first one to write a letter, and the middle he calls me back, the Sefer. I said, "What's up?" He goes, "The guy before apostle the Torah." I was so happy. The guy right before the guy who he apostled the Torah. So he called me back. He goes, "You're writing the Sefer Torah now. You're being magia. You're writing the Torah now." So there, I was so happy someone really messed it up. No, it's really amazing. Okay, so again, yes.
I would be remiss because we just finished the Gemara that say Ki'ilu Kibla Me Har Sinai. If you write a Sefer Torah, it's like you at Har Sinai. What's the end of this week's parsha? Kabbalah Satorah.
There you go. Okay, I think you have to put it in the. It has to be written in your blog.
It will be tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem.
Mitzvah Hashem. Yes, Harold. Yes, Harold.
Practically understanding, if a letter is missing in a word, how do you put that letter back in?
Probably erase the word.
You have to erase the whole word, right?
You could, or you could be Tyler. You can put it on.
Yeah, but that's as you said it. That's ugly. I mean, that's not.
Again, we didn't finish the daf. It could be ugly, but there's halachas of being Tyler that you put it between the lines.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we didn't finish the daf yet. You'll see on the Amid Beis Hesh. You'll see different halachas. Okay. Anyway, so Medam Amurim that Shir Gilyain. What's the share of the parchment, guys? What's the share of the parchment? Shir Gilyain Milmata Tefach Milmaila Gimel Etzbois. Milmata, it's a tefach. Milmaila, it's 3 etzbois. In other words, there are 4 etzbois in the tefach, right? So below it's a tefach, and above it's 3 etzbois. So it's a little like 3/4 of a tefach. Ubein daf l'taf, and between each column, kimale revach roich, it's take out the word roichiv, kimale shtei etzbois. It should be 2 fingers that are between what? Between each column on the urea. Again, you have urea and you have the columns, different columns. Like ubechumashim, and the scrolls that they made, milmata sholish etzbois, milmaila shtei etzbois. Below was 3 etzbois and above was 2 etzbois. Ubein daf l'daf kamali roichiv, and the team dafim on their tires on their chumashim was a thumb. Roichiv goydel is a thumb. Now back to a Sefer Torah. That was Chumashim. Now back to Sefer Torah. Ubein shita l'shita, kimale shita, like in between one line and the next line, it should be kimale shita, should be whatever the distance of a line is. Ubein teva l'teva, and between each word, kimale ois katana, like a yud. Ubein ois la'ois, kimale chut hasara. Between each ois should be what? A chut hasara. So you're getting the dimensions what of the ksiva. Al yimayir odem es ksav lo yimifnei rebach shel mata v'lo yimifnei rebach shel maila. In other words, in order to facilitate that the margins should be 3/4 above and full tefach below, don't change the handwriting. The handwriting should be as uniform as possible. That takes precedence. The handwriting is the na, is the handwriting. So not that the parchment should be equidistant. Right? And nor a distance between what? Between shita the shita. Let's say you went ahead and you were misaret be'emtza daf 2 shitim shein rebach kedeshir beinayim lo yimayir ksav mifnei oisei rebach. Don't go ahead and to fit in the sirtut, don't make it less to fit in the lines.
You can make it big. Can you make it big? It says lo yimai, but can you?
Again, I guess making it larger is not. Again, I really don't know. I would assume that it's okay because it says lo yimayit. V'lo mifnei rebach shebein parsha leparsha nizdami lo teva ben chamesh oisios lo yichtav shtayim b'tachadaf. In other words, let's say at the end of the line, fellas, and you have a word. So, guys, there's no such thing as a dash in the Torah. You don't go ahead, you know what, 3 dash and continue. You don't do that. You write outside the column. In other words, if I have a 5-letter word, I'm going to have 3 within the column and 2 outside. I'm not going to have 2 inside and 3 outside. The majority will stay inside. So, lo yichta shtayim b'toich hadaf u'shlosh chutz l'daf, ela amid beis, ela sholish b'toich hadaf u'shtayim chutz l'daf. Nizdami lo teva b'shtei oisiyos. If what? If nizdami, if let's say you have a word that's 2 oisiyos, lo yisrakenu lebein hadafim. You don't go ahead and put it between the dafim. In other words, you just told me if you have a 5-letter word, you can put two letters between the dafim. What happens if I have a word that consists of 2 letters? That you can't put between the dafim. That you'd have to start in the next line. That's the word shame, the word or sham, whatever sham, right? You can't go ahead and put that on between that. You'd have to start a new line. El chayzer v'koyzer b'tchilas hashita. Chayzer, you go back and write at the beginning of the shita. Now chayzer is a lashon funny, guys. So chayzer means. Okay, so there's a nice shita over here. Look at the shita aleph. El chayzer ktsas kasha lepirish Rashi. My chayzer v'koyzer. Lehavi lo lemeima chayzer. You shouldn't say chayzer. Kimish lehiskul b'seif me'ashita el kol b'rosh hashita. In other words, you're putting the whole word at the beginning of the line. What do you mean chayzer, guys? Chayzer means you go back. What are you going back? According to Pashup Pshat, you're starting a whole new word, right? Upirish Harava Eliezer Migamazia. It's a famous place that was destroyed during the Crusades, right? Kigoin shen is damin loy teva shel hey oisius kigoin Avraham. V'hu kosav aver. You wrote the first 3 words, aver. V'nitoisa heim Avraham. So the heim, right? Afa pisha amush de oisius kosav lechutz hacha kimet sheim teva achas b'fnei atzma. Lois v'kenu el chayzer v'koyzer Avraham kula b'rosh hashita. Guys, it's very geschmack. Listen what he says. You just told me halacha. If you have a word of 5 oisius, put 3 in the margin and 2 outside. That's provided that the ones outside are not a complete word. Chayzer, what do? Let's say it's Avraham, Aleph Vav Reish, but Haim is a word. Then this whole goes. You don't do the 3-2. It goes back to the beginning. Chayzer, you go take it. Don't put it. Don't use the 3-5 trick. Go ahead and put it right back. You go back to the beginning. Chayzer to the shita next the line. It goes back to the line. Toyeb b'shem. Let's say Loyaleni made a mistake in the Shem HaMefarish, but you left it out. Guys, you left it out. Goyra es masha kusav. You erase the word Vayom Moshe. You erase the word Vayom Moshe El Hashem. You read the word El. You erase the word. You then go ahead, put in the shame Heshi v'toila es masha gorar, and the word that you were goyrer, that you scraped, you put toila. You put it above the line. You hear, Harold? V'koysev es Hashem al makam hagrar, and you write the name of Hashem in the place that you scraped out. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi says, af toilin es Hashem. He says you don't scrape anything. You put the shame between the lines. Rabbi Yitzchak Omer, af moichik v'koysev. You moichik. Rashi says it's lach. It's wet. You can blot it out and write the shame, even though it's not going to be as nice, Rashi says, as moichik. If it's dried and you cut it with a razor blade, it will not be as ugly as if you go ahead and the ink is wet and you're going to take the ink off, it's going to leave a roshim. So Rabbi Yitzchak is of the opinion you can even do that. Rav Shimon Shizuri Omer, very important to remember the name. Rav Shimon Shizuri Omer, Kol Hashem Kula Toilin, the whole name you could go ahead and suspend. Miktsasai ain't Toilin, but part of it you cannot. Rav Shimon Elazar Omer Mishum Reb Meir, and Kaisman is Hashem Lo Al Makam Agrar. You don't put it on the place where it was scraped out. Lo Al Makam Machak, nor in the place that you when it was wet and you blotted it. Vein Toilin I saw, nor do you go ahead what and in other words, Rav Shimon ben Elazar does not allow if you make a mistake in the shame. You have kahaktat tsaris. He does not allow any of these tikkunim. Ketzad Isa, Misalik es Yeriya, you take out the whole Yeriya, Kula, V'goin said, it goes to the Geniza. You know, if you make a mistake in the shame, forget it. You're going to have to, you're going to take out that urea of the Sefer Torah, you're going to have to start again in that particular urea. Itmar. Reb Chananel Oimer Rav. Halacha Toilin Es Hashem. Who said that, guys? Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said that, right? So it says, Reb Chananel, the halacha is you go ahead and you put the shame between the oisias, between the lines. Rabbi Baruch Chana Amar, Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Shmuel, halacha moichik. The halacha is what? That you erase, right? The halacha is moichik, that you erase, meaning you blot out, like Rabbi Yitzchak, the kaisiv. So Rav Chananel said in the name of Rav, the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, but he didn't mention Rabbi Yossi. And Rabbi Baruch Chana, in the name of in the name of Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Shmuel, said the halacha is like Rabbi Yitzchak, but he didn't mention Rabbi Yitzchak. Fred Gemara, V'lema Mar halacha Kamar, Mar halacha Kamar. Why don't you say the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, halacha is Rabbi Yitzchak? Because there were people who mixed up. They mixed up Rabbi Yitzchak for Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yitzchak. So Mela, to make sure that you know who we paskin like, we paskin that one says moichik, the other one toila, and the other one says moichik. Amar Rav Marchinina, Amar Ula, Amar Rav Chanina, halacha Reb Shimon Shazuri. The halacha is like Reb Shimon Shazuri, right? That if you can do the whole name, but not part of the name. The whole name, not part of the name. Anytime it says the halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Shazuri, halacha is like him. Now, guys, this is going to take us for another daf. So get this straight. This is Rab Ravin Baruch Ginina saying in the name of Ula, in the name of Rav Chanina. So we'll be very brief. Rabbi Chanina, that any time it says the halacha is like Shimon Shazuri, the halacha is like him. That's what he said. Now we want to know where he got that from, because he didn't say it over here. He just mentioned. He said the halacha. In other words, we mentioned over here, Reb Shimon Shazuri says this. Now we had Rav saying the halacha is like Reb Chanina. We had like Reb Yossi. We had Rabbi Baruch Chana saying the halacha is like Rebbe Yitzchak. They didn't say the halacha is like Reb Shimon Shazuri. Reb Chanina didn't say the halacha is like Reb Shimon Shazuri. He didn't mention anything over here, correct? So where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? So that's what we want to know. So Amar halacha Reb Shimon Shazuri v'layoid elakam lach Rishon Reb Shimon Shazuri halacha ma'aseh. Hey, ilay ma Reb Shimon Shazuri oimer kol Hashem kula toila miksasei ein toila v'itma Allah Amar Reb Chananel Amar Rav halacha toila is Hashem. The halacha, he says, you toila the Hashem like Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Rav Chana Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Shmuel halacha meichik like Rabbi Yitzchak. B'kaisiv v'im Isa, that this is the place to mention it. Hunami lema. Why did Reb Chanina go ahead and say the halacha is like Shimon Shazuri, and he didn't. Ella aha. It must be, in other words, we're trying to formulate where exactly was it stated the halacha is like Shimon Shazuri and the halacha is like Mechal Makan. It's not over here in Stam, and now we're going to go through Shas trying to find where it is. Okay. So aha Reb Shimon Shazuri. Afilu ben chamesh shonim v'charish besada shchitasa im matarasei. There's halacha guys who have been pekua. If an animal is geschachten and it's fine to be it's full 9 months, you shech the mother and you find it inside, it doesn't need a shchita. If it stands up and starts walking around, midrabanan, you need a shchita. Why? Because people shouldn't say you can eat an animal without a shchita. They're not going to know it's a ben pekua. Says Rav Shimon Zuri, even it's 4 or 5 years old, you can eat it without a shchita. Yeah, you can eat it without a shchita. It's a ben pekua. Ha'it marla. Right? Ziri Amar Reb Chanina, halach Reb Shimon Shazuri. Vim Isa, like Reb Chanina, Hunami Lema. He should have said that halacha is like him B'chal Maisai, B'chal Makam, and he didn't. Ela aha. Now, a person wants to give a get to his wife, he tells the shliach, kisvu, write it, utenu, and give it. Right? So now, initially, they said, Hayotze b'kailar, a guy's being taken out in chains, he's being taken to be killed, he's going to be executed. V'omar kisvu get le'ishti. Now, what did he say? He didn't say tenu. He said, write a get to my wife. He didn't say give it. Hari elo yichtru v'yitnu. We can say that, you know why? The reason to say give it, he has other things on his mind. So why is he divorcing his wife? He doesn't want her to fall to Yibam. He doesn't want, she's going to, rather her be a Gerusha than Almana. Like this, she won't fall to Yibam. So therefore, he has other things on his mind. He's not going to say what? He forgot to say to give it. Chazul Leimar, not only someone who was taken out and changed to be killed, Afamaf Amafarish, person's going out to the desert. He's going in a caravan, or Mafish is going to the sea. He's going across the sea. And there's all these cases where a person it's dangerous, right? And so it's he's not being killed over here, but we can say because of the situation, he forgot to say tenu. Reb Shimon Zuri Oima Af HaMesukin, even a chayla. So inami or else, aha. Now, guys, we're chayish d'Rabbanan for demai that they don't take of Trumas Ma'aser Nama Oretz. On Shabbos, we're not chayish because you need the food. So most of them take it off. So on Shabbos will be mekel. Trumas Ma'aser is the truma that the Levi takes off from his what? Takes off from his Ma'aser Rishon and of the Mai. So here you have a case. Trumas Ma'aser shel the Mai shechazum kaima. It falls back in its place. Reb Shimon Zuri Yoimeh af b'chol sholo v'oichlo al piv. You can eat it. You can eat it. Right? V'idmar lo Rabbi Yochanan halakha Reb Shimon Zuri b'mesukin u'b'trumas Ma'aser shel the Mai. So Rabbi Yochanan says the halacha is like in both cases like him, right? So just look at a second to get the case down of the Trumas Ma'aser of the Mai. Look at Rashi. Reisha dach misen hachis mesechta demai halkeich peres misha enu neman al ma'aser. You buy from Namartz. V'shakach lo yasin. You take off ma'aser. Sholu b'Shabbos. You go ahead and mishol on Shabbos. You can ask him. V'oichel al piv. He tells you he took off it. You can believe him. Well, Mitzvah Shabbos lo yoichel at shishased trumas ma'aser. Okay, and then till Mitzvah Shabbos. So again, on Shabbos we'll be soymich on his word dibur, and therefore what? We'll ask him because you need the food. Mitzvah Shabbos you take it off. Now you have trumas ma'aser of the Mai. Even during the week you can ask him. That's the halacha. Like guys, you hear Trumas Ma'aser shel the Mai because they're not chayish and truma, so only a ma'aser. Memela, you can go ahead and ask him. That's the halacha over there. So guys, back in the Gemara says Rabbi Yochanan, the halacha is like a Shimon Shazuri b'Mesukin u'b'Trumas Ma'aser shel the Mai. Good. V'im Isa, and if this is the place, how nami lema. So Reb Chanina also should have said. Halachas like him, and halachas like Mechol. So far, we have not been successful in finding exactly the place where we said the halachas like Rashid Bezumi b'chol makom. So Yotzim D'Reinu, we had a nice share tonight, Baruch Hashem, and we discussed a lot of halachas of Safris, right? Halachas of Safris and beautiful halacha of the Rosh. I have something. You see something with lines of Rambam Kasaba? Okay, this is it. My Rosh Shiva's share, the first share in Gittin. And he was speaking about that the spaces between the Chumash, that there's 4 spaces between the Chumash, between 3 or 4 spaces between the Chumash. So, I will have sipin Chumash the Chumash, Hari She'en Kol Chumashim Sefer Torah Achas, Rach Chumashim Shel Sifrei Torah Nefradim Zemizeh. They're considered separate Sefarim. It must be that the spaces between are considered a sefer. Even though there's spaces in between, nonetheless they're considered part of the sefer Torah and they're mechaber it all together. V'nira bara the mehai taima kasur of Haigoin Rabbeinu Sadya the beget kasvina and yud be shitin. On a get you write 12 shitin, 12 lines. Mishum de mikri sefer krisus kishir yud be shitin hamafsikin ben chumash lechumash. That's the amount. If you have 3 between and there's 4 times 3 is 12, and krisus is like it separates. Kavanasam the hefsek nami have a sefer. The lav hachi ain't moving l'devrayim. Doesn't make any sense. Eza shaychus yesh leget the mikri sefer. Why would a get be called a sefer krisus? Leha hefsek she'ein leishum shaychus the sefer. Elam didn't hefsek. Elam must be that what? That the hefsek itself is called a sefer. Umafurish came b'shut me'aram b'hakdoma l'chelik beis b'shem hanasivas hamishpat. This is what I want. She'a hefsek hu molei oisius. Guys, the hefsek is full of letters. V'zel shoynei sham b'hakdoma shniya diba maskol ama hamasader. V'nira pima she'shemati b'shem agoin milisa. That he heard from Rav Yaakov Milisa was the Nesivis. The Farish, my Shekosav, Kiloi Dava Reiku Michem. The Torah is not a Dava Reik. What does Reik mean? Empty. Kihine b'Torah yesh mekaymes aksuvim, There are places that are written. Ubezara Kodesh Medrashos to Teva Yisrael Rasha Tevis Yesh Shishim Ribui Oisius the Torah. Guys, the word Yisrael, the Rasha Tevis is Yesh Shishim Ribui Oisius the Torah. For Yesh Kama Mekoimis Penuyim, there are many places in the Torah that are empty. Reikonim b'Torah, Kemo bein Chumash leChumash, bein Parsha leParsha, v'Damehem. But you have spaces. Al v'emes loy reiku, they're not empty. Ki gam sham molei oisios nistorim v'genuzim she'ena nirim la'ayin. There are oisios there that are hidden, and they're not able to be seen by the naked eye. V'inyan ki yesh neshamis Yisrael haro'uyim li davik ba'oisios ha'Torah. There are neshamis that are roy to cling to the oisios of Torah. Yesh shishim riboy, guys, there were 600,000 Jews. They were able to cling to the Oisius. V'yesh mehem, and there are other Jews, she'ein ruin midavik ba'Oisius. However, umikol makam nimshach chiyusam mimakam harik shebetayra ad kan devarav. That nonetheless they get the chiyus from the empty places in the Torah. I still remember this Nesivus. Guys, you hear this Nesivus? Guys, you hear this Nesivus? It's Pelaployim. It's Pelaployim. All these empty spaces, the Gilead and this and everything. And that's why when it says that there's only X amount of words in the Torah and you count, it's missing because they're not counting the words they can't see. They're counting the words they can't see. So, Baruch Hashem, we should be zeicha to all cling to what words that we possibly could see.